the scheduled city council meeting of the entire council. This is called a special meeting, which we can take action and vote and move projects forward without deferring them to another meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Thursday, April 1st, 2021. The time is 9 a.m. We have 4 items on the agenda today, and because this is a special council meeting, we will need to take the roll call.
Here.
Here. Present.
Present?
Present.
Here. All elected officials are on board, and for those who are maybe listening at home or watching on television, we have a few people in the audience today. Representatives are going to be giving presentations today regarding the MEC audiovisual proposal, an update to the signal system on Chestnut Street, and reviewing and some adopting of the LCCMR grant application. So we have our city administrator, Britzy Bennis, present. On Zoom, we have our finance director and HR director, Sherry Erickson, on board. We have Wendy Summers from finance. We have Matt Reed from SEH, our engineering of record. We have Brian Silber, who is our park and rec director, Brian Lindsay, who is our city attorney, and representing our architectural firm for the MEC, we have Eric Wedge, and the 2 gentlemen here are here to make a presentation on the audiovisual portion of this agenda. So we're going to move the agenda around just a little bit. We're going to switch to item number 1 and 2 around. So we'll use item number 1 on the agenda will be adopt the resolution approving the year-ends transfers for the year ending December 31st, 2020. It's something we do every year. You have before you a hard copy of a resolution that is actually dated for April the 13th, 2021, but we can make that pass a resolution today at the special meeting and make sure we change that date that's on the resolution. And this is something we do every year. So before you, you have in your packet the request for the resolution for these year-end transfers. And if we have any questions about that, we have our city finance director on Zoom, Sherry. Sherry, would you please give us a little rundown on the year-ends transfer, not for our edification and those who are listening at home? Sherry? Okay, while we try to get her back on the line. Okay, Sherry, thank you.
Here, let me adjust my computer. Okay, to start off with, we have special transfers from the general fund to the following fund. Fund 201, which is the Lakes Beautification Fund for $20,000. This has been budgeted, and it's been budgeted every year now for about the last 7 years. We have a fund balance transfer into the tennis for all of $37,862. There is a bit of a deficit there. The next one is to the Amariso for our lighting, the additional lighting that we had, the cupola that wasn't originally budgeted when we took the leases out from the Huntington Bank. So that's $135,000 there. Capital project funds for the Midway Drive was $179,854. And I know Wendy is in the audience. If you want to elaborate at all on that, Wendy?
Wendy, would you come to the, use the microphone so everyone can hear at home? Thank you very much. If you could just come to the front or use the microphone that's on the rail next to Matt Reed. Okay, Wendy?
Okay, for the Midway Drive improvements, I know we met with Matt Reed, and there was some, disposal fees that were not budgeted, and then there was some engineering fees that weren't budgeted, so we were short on this whole project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about this particular fund transfer? Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Some of those engineering fees we talked about were because the project went a lot longer than we thought it would because of things COVID-related, if I remember right.
Correct. These were change orders that we
Yep.
did approve due to, they found, if you remember, the soils that they found that were bad, for
Yep.
lack of a better word, near the former gas station by Borgen Road and Midway Drive, just unknown conditions. So
Right.
we had approved these, they just need to be moved from the right fund to the right
For the
fund.
right fund. And then the Amoresco, that's a one-time,
Same thing, yep. We had
Thing.
approved the change order for
Yep,
that. Just
okay.
need to move it from the right fund to the right fund.
that's what I thought. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just for clarification purposes, these funds were already approved for expenditure. This document of the resolution is simply for the transferring those funds to the proper part of the general fund for distribution or for reimbursement.
For the audit preparation, we need to have everything in the right buckets.
Mm-hmm.
So Wendy's been working on getting everything into their right spots.
Right, and our audit will begin sometime in April. So thank you. Wendy, anything else on that particular fund balance?
Well, I should just say too, the Midway Drive improvements actually was, if you looked at the Fund 502 down below a little bit, there's $225,000 taken out of this other project fund
Right,
for that too. So we were over $400,000 short in that whole project.
right, but we did approve the funds prior, we're just making the transfers now.
And we have to do this for the audit. I mean, they want a formal resolution to actually do this.
Sure, thank you very much, Wendy. Any other questions with respect to that part of the fund? Okay, thank you. Sherry, please continue.
Okay, moving on here now, money coming into the general fund. We're going to be moving from the lease financing, $175,851. And this, I believe, is from the Huntington Bank for the Amoresco project. There was money left in there. There's an enterprise fund of 607. We're putting $235,000 back into the general fund, solid waste. And now bumping down to fund at 362, it's the 2019A tax abatement allocation to VITA. This was, Britt, you can jump in anytime. This was the grant that, not a grant, but a bond that we took out for the VITA
The downtown
program.
Downtown grant program. When the money comes into the city, we have to put it into a debt service fund. And then once we expend it, we move it from debt service to the right proper fund that it really belongs in the cash fund.
Reallocating those funds back into the
Correct.
general
It's just-
fund.
It's an accounting procedure. When it comes in, Wendy has to create a debt service account, and then at the end of the year, she moves it from debt service to the account that it belongs in.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
Oh,
I should just say that debt service fund, Fund 399, lease financing debt service, that's going into the general fund. That is not from the Amoresco Huntington project. It's actually, we levy for that, for the
Right.
leases that we're paying out of the general fund.
Right,
So it's not having anything to do with that other project.
right. Thank you. Sherry?
you. Moving on down, it's the street projects, Midway Drive. This is what Wendy had alluded to earlier, $224,000 we have to move. And then 463, that's another street project for $17,526. The next two items that are transferred are the MEC, the miners, 2020A and 2020B bonds. And then down on the bottom is the 607 solid waste recycling. We're moving to the golf course because there was a deficit of $90,223.
Okay, thank you. And a clarification on the geo sales tax revenue bonds, which is funds from 360 to 220A and 363, 220. These are allocations of funds that we received for the MEC that was held in the special fund, and we've expended those funds, and now the reimbursement is back into the general fund with respect to these two items. Is that correct?
Is that, again, the debt service, the money comes in from the bond to the debt service fund, which is usually a 300 number, is debt service funds, and then project accounts are 400 something. So it's moved from the debt service fund to the project account, so now we can run a project report and show you exactly this is the cash that came in, this is what was expended, this is what was left.
Very good. Thank you very much, Britt.
Separated among separate different accounts.
And thank you for that, for edification purpose for those who are listening.
If I may jump in.
Go ahead, Sherry.
And I just want to remind everybody that we still have investments from this bond that we put in. I know it's gaining very small interest, but at least the majority of this bonds are in an investment account right now.
Very good, thank you. Okay, this is kind of a short synopsis of the resolution that's before us today with respect to the fund transfers. That's done on an annual basis, depending upon the projects we have throughout the year. And so if there aren't any other questions, we do have one. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, on the last one with the golf course from the Fund 607, why is that from the solid waste recycling? Why is that those dollars taken from there and put into the golf course 613 fund?
That is Action Enterprise to an enterprise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, any other questions with respect to the resolution as proposed for the exception of the date change from April 13th, 2021 to today's date, April 1st, 2021?
May I clarify to everybody why we want to do this resolution early today is because the council has asked us to accelerate the bond issuance for our street project. And to do that, we have to have the transfers done so Wendy can give them an accurate portrayal of the year end. So we had a plan to bring it to the April 13th meeting, but the bond council has asked us to move it up if we can to make the process a little faster on our side.
Right, and at the request, particularly from the Street and Alley Committee, there's the direction was to speed up that process, which triggers other actions that we have to make, and this is one of those actions we have to take by saving a couple weeks on this regard. So, thank you for that clarification, Britt. Is there any further questions or comments about the resolution? If not, we were looking for council action. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, I appreciate that, what we're doing here. Sherry and I had a conversation, and Brett, about this ahead of time of this meeting, and this is something that's imperative to get these bonds for the upcoming street projects from 21 through 23 done on time. We want to make sure we hit the best interest that is out there right now, and it looks like if you're watching everything, the interest rate is starting to move up a little bit, so trying to save ourselves some dollars in the end. So that's the reason for it, but I appreciate the council doing this.
Okay, any other comments or action? We're looking for council action on this resolution. Looking for approval or recommendation of the resolution as presented with the one codicil date change from April 13th to April 1st. Councilor Johnson.
I'll move the resolution approving the year-end transfers for the year ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor Johnson to approve. Is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Did you get that motion, Chris? Thank you. Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
And you want to go back up to the item number 1 on the agenda, which is the update of the Miners Event Convention Center, the MEC AV proposal. Britt and I know there were some questions and some suggestions and some requests to make a couple of changes to the audiovisual at the MEC, and so we're here today to look at the updated audiovisual contract at the MEC and what's going to be proposed there and what the hardware costs are going to be, et cetera. So looking for the updated presentation. Welcome, and please state your name for the record, and welcome.
My name is Mike Chapley. I'm with Tierney Brothers. Thank you for having me again.
Get that name?
Mike Chapley. And then with me, I also have my sales director, Aaron Cole.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, Mr. Chatley.
Again, thank you for having us. Today, we're going to be going over primarily the add alt to the base bid for the audiovisual system for the new MEC.
Okay.
Here. So similar presentation to last time. What we'll cover, base bid, which is basically quotes A through G, which is in the agenda or the packet there, and then the add alt, which is quotes H through M. We can cover each one separately if needed. But I did break down on just a single slide here, overall costs on what we're proposing. So the base bid came in at $370,000. We broke them down into separate sections, which we covered in the previous meeting. What was brought up last time was a more integrated audio solution, primarily around paging and being able to address people throughout the facility. So that is being addressed in quote H, which we've broken down there. And then there was a couple other miscellaneous requests brought up throughout last meeting that we can cover as well, and those are I through M there. The nice thing with how we broke this out is council and city will have the ability to pick and choose which quotes out of that base bid or that add alt they'd like to go with. So if you just want to address paging, you can certainly do that, but you can obviously go with all of it if it behooves you. So I do want to address the paging quote. So this does bring in a little bit of a redesign into the system. This is assuming that the entire base bid is approved. We'll be adding in a separate paging solution, which is going to add 6 additional zones of audio coverage throughout the facility, basically putting speakers everywhere throughout the lobby space, hallways, locker rooms, fitness area. Basically, the whole facility will have a ability to be paged and accessed via a speaker. Speaker types are going to vary based off of ceiling types throughout the space. And then what we'll also have in here are 2 paging stations, and this was discussed with Brian and during the walkthrough last time on locations. We'll have a head end in the open office space, and then we'll have a separate paging space down in one of the concession areas. And this will have the ability to have preloaded pages in there. So if you wanted to set something up where you can click a button 5 minutes before a game starts and say, hey, puck drops in 5 minutes, that could go out and no one would really have to speak over that. But you'll also have the ability to speak into a microphone, for instance, and send out an alert, hey, we have a missing child, or so-and-so, please come to the front desk area to pick up your missing gear. The actual segmentation of the audio zones will be addressed during installation. We'll walk through everything with the client or with Brian and the installers, make sure that all those audio sections are set up as desired. That's the biggest, I think, issue that we wanted to address from last meeting. So I don't know if there are questions as it relates to that specific quote.
I just have one question, before we move to Councilor Paulson. Just a clarification on a technical point of the paging system itself. So say for the sake of argument that there's somebody that needs to page only the coach that's in a specific locker room, can you focus only on that room, or does it have to go out to the entire? Do you have the ability to target a specific room or the ballroom or the bar area or wherever it is? You'll be able to target a specific announcement or a page for someone so it doesn't go out to the entire MEC?
You would have the ability to target zones. So the zones would be broken out, like, for instance, locker rooms may be a zone, the event center would be a zone, Arena A, Arena B would be a zone. So not specific to each room individually.
Okay, zone targets. Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I really appreciate you guys doing that walkthrough, because I think maybe that might have helped a little bit as to what some of our questions were. And then just, so there's 8 zones, is that correct, with this paging system?
There should be 11.
Oh, 11. Okay.
Well, because
Sorry, maybe in
it's
the
also
packet.
going off the base bid as well. So you'll
Oh,
have.
got it. Okay.
Yeah, so
So
we already
those would have
have
already been included.
pre-configured zones. This
Okay.
is,
So just to, I guess, clarify everything, there will be paging capabilities in every room throughout the MEC with these zones.
Correct. Every room that makes sense. I think we avoided a handful that really had no purpose
Very good.
for needing paging.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Any other questions to this point by anyone? None?
Perfect. So we can go through the other quotes here. Again, this is the one I think had the most precedence. So additionally, we added a separate quote for the actual fitness rooms, just because the functionality in those two rooms could offer a little bit more. So in here, we are including the ability to basically have an instructor come in, wear a headset, boom style mic, and run a class, whether that's a yoga class, a HIIT class, a Taibo, whatever it may be. You'll also have the ability to connect in a personal device for playing music or playing program audio. So those two rooms, we added as a separate option, just because they could be added or they could be removed, and you'd still have paging capabilities in there, but wouldn't necessarily have a complete solution.
So I have one more question. It's not part of the fitness center, but thank you for that. I think that's what something we have asked for as well. So when you have these different zones, are announcements going to be made? Is there going to be outside paging in one of those zones, like in the lobby area, outside of being in the plaza area and those kind of things? They'll be able to hear an announcement while they're outside as well. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So your paging system will have what's called ducking capabilities. And so if something's going on and there's, say, music playing or a class going on and someone were to page, that would duck that audio and override the page if that zone is a targeted zone that someone wanted to page to.
So then the question I have then, so say you're running a not necessarily a page, but it's the audio visual, right? So there's an event going on, and we set up a loop for a 5-minute loop or wherever, make an announcement every minute, get your seats, the game starts at such 5 minutes, game starts in 2 minutes, or the banquet presentation begins at such a time. So as those are being done, if somebody needed to be paged for something, that page would override that, or how would that work?
The loop could still continue, so if it was a 5 and a 2 minute page or loop, if you will.
But there's ability to interrupt if
There's
necessary.
ability to interrupt, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, that clarifies everything for me. Anybody else? Okay, so next steps, Britt? Brian? You have more to present?
Yep, I have a
I'm
couple
sorry.
more slides. We have,
Please do. I apologize.
so as we were doing the walkthrough last time, there were a couple more options that were brought up. One of which was just a mobile cart. I think that was brought up by Councilmember Johnson. The request was to just add a 75-inch display on a mobile cart that could be used anywhere in the facility. It's not necessarily connected in, but basically just a TV on a cart. So that is an option you guys could select from. The other was adding cameras into the event center. So right now we just have more of an audio focus in there where you have speakers, microphones, and then projection screens. This addition would allow you to basically run a Zoom meeting in there from a personal device. Someone could bring in their own laptop, connect into the system, use the mics, cameras, all that stuff, and conduct a Zoom meeting. And each room, if it's broken into the 4 segments, would have that flexibility. And then additionally, it was asked for a recording streaming device to be added that was more mobile. And so that is, the bottom picture there is it's called the Extron SMP 111. What that would be is it's a mobile device that you'd be able to connect into your event center and the 3 conference rooms if you ever wanted to stream a meeting like to your website or just record a meeting for future distribution purposes. That device will allow for that.
And if I may, that helps if there's a remote presenter from California or wherever teaching and training class to maybe some of our EMS personnel. So instead of paying somebody to come up, they can do the training class, and this provides that option in which to do that. This will be the conduit for that.
Correct, yeah. So you'll have your 3 conference rooms, including the boardroom, that are set up and equipped to allow for a meeting like this, a Zoom meeting, where someone could be remote and dialing in. And then this ad is specific to the event center, where if I was presenting from California, for instance, I would be able to see the camera feed from the event center if you were using it in that fashion.
Thank you. I guess that was, that's what I meant to ask, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
And those are the quote additions. I didn't have a slide, but there is a quote K, which is the digital signage streaming. So we do have digital signage throughout the facility. There was a request to say if there was a broadcast truck brought in, for instance, and they wanted to stream to those 8 displays that have the signage on them, is that there? It was not. Now, if you wanted to, you could stream the live video. It's going to be a little delayed, but live feed from that broadcast to those displays.
That's a very good feature. Thank you.
And that covers the ad alt. I don't know if we want to revisit any of the base bid, but again, you guys do have the option on that ad alt to select specific quotes.
I'll refer to one of the design committee team members and City Councilor Julianne Paulson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So when you were just talking about the streaming capabilities, and the mayor was asking that question, were you referring to alt item number 11, or excuse me, L, on the Event Center Web Conference Camera Edition?
Correct, yeah. So L is for basically incorporating web conferencing capabilities into that event center. So before cameras similar to what you have in here.
And that would allow the presenter to be able to actually see video of what's going on in that room while they're presenting.
Correct, yeah. If I was remotely presenting, I could see the camera feed, or if I was presenting from that room and you were remote, you'd be able to see me as the presenter, similar to how this
Okay,
setup
so,
is.
and that ad alt is 31, that's the 31,000.
Correct.
And then on the conference room streaming, that alt is 4,388. What's the difference on that one?
So the
That would be M.
Yeah, so M, that is more of a mobile device, and that was a request during the walkthrough when we were out on site. Basically, what you'll have is you'll have a box that you'd be able to plug into various locations to stream to a website, YouTube, and record a meeting if you need it to. So it does include some training on that, because it would require someone to know how to connect it into the system. If you
And
needed
that's
to
not
do
a
that.
part of the mobile cart.
That is not part of the mobile cart from a display standpoint. The
Okay.
mobile cart is really just a presentation display that you'd connect a laptop into or
Okay.
connect the cable box into.
So on that mobile cart, I think my question prior was the whole capability of, like, people are doing Mirror or Peloton, from that fitness center. But if that mobile cart could be wheeled in, that would be acceptable as a functionality instead of having to actually wire those rooms.
Correct. From
That
a
would take the place
presentation
of that.
standpoint, yeah, you could wheel that mobile cart in and someone could play a preloaded, yoga class or whatever it might be.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of that clarification. I really appreciate it.
And I think that's important to note, as Councilor Paulson indicated about the fitness center, some of these Zumba classes that, people come in, they go all throughout the country, you would probably want to have that in some form, in some larger area. And so using this particular portion of it could be helpful as well. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, just a quick question. So the total for the whole package I see is 116,569 plus the base?
Correct.
Okay. Brian, I got a question for you, our attorney. Does that satisfy being able to incorporate this along with the base without going out for bids again? I think we can do this. It's an addendum, so we can do this then, correct? That's
Yep, everything should be fine.
I don't think we should mess around trying to pick this apart, because you might have more than one event going on in those fitness centers. So you need the direct wiring for TV sets and stuff, not just a mobile cart. So I believe we should go with the whole package. That's my personal opinion, along with your base bid.
Thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Yeah, we asked for this information. It's being provided. These are the things we asked. These are our wants. And now that you've addressed our wants and needs, now we have to decide what we want, right? Correct. And we know what we need and we know what we want, and it's a matter of making a decision. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. As I look at this and look at the total ad alternate bid and adding that to the base bid, that's going to be, what, $48,000 or $180,000, which is almost twice, Brian, what your original estimate was? Okay, he's giving me a nod, yes. As I've listened to the presentation and looking at L&M, I honestly think that we can accomplish that by not having hardwired stuff. When you folks zooming in, having the cameras like we have here to do that, it takes another person or two people to process. That's why I'm sitting back here, so we can switch between who's presenting and stuff. I'd be supportive of H through K for sure. I think that gives us that extra leg up. But being able to, in the future, purchase cameras that are mobile and probably a more effective use of the technology, that's just where I'm at when it comes to, especially for the total price, because that would at least drop the total price down by about $35,000 as the ad alternate. Because I know our wish list for FF&E is pretty long, and that's just my personal opinion on it. I just think that the technology, once we put in a camera and install it hardwired, it's there, and it's going to be there for 50 years. Being able to purchase movable cameras and tripods and getting those taken care of, I think that might be a future investment, possibly a sponsorship by somebody maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. And I just give my opinion real quick and then go to Councilor Beyondich. I'm good with the entire add-ons, by the changes and that and the information provided by Councilor Johnson for the additional $35,000. We know technology is going to evolve. We know we're going to have to make reinvestments over this, whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. But we got to address what's in the now. And I think by doing that, in the event something goes wrong, we have a backup plan. If something happens with Wi-Fi or whatever, we'll have an ability to do it with the hardwire for the additional for $35,000 for the investment that we're making at the MEC, which is millions of dollars. I think is worthwhile making that investment as well. But Councilor Beyondich.
Eric, is the building going to be wired to handle all of this at this point, or is it something that you would be adding as we purchase? If we were to buy the full, we had the full package, is the MEC wired right now to accommodate that?
In answer to your question, the sheetrock is going on the walls fairly soon. If you've done your last walkthrough, the steel studs are up. So anything that we want to get fished through the walls, it would be advantageous for the council to make a decision on today as a total package, because adding it in the future becomes more challenging. Will there be some additional drilling through precast walls for their wire systems to run? Are there cable trays that are part of the building that they can run their low voltage in? Yes, there are pathways set up in the building right now, but those pathways are slowly shrinking day by day. So if the council were to approve the base bid and Turney's alternative bid, I would probably actually want to bring them over to the job site trailer after today's meeting and introduce them to Kraus Anderson. And they did do the walkthrough of the previous meeting so that we can get a complete low voltage meeting with our electricians that are on site, Turney Brothers. And then next week, you guys will be seeing the security bids for your security system and your access control we're at the point where we really want to get everybody on board pulling their wires soon. I hope that addresses your question.
Well, it does, and it's kind of a two-part because I'm branching off Counselor Johnson. So would we need the complete package, the whole à la carte right now when we open this building? Or is it something that we can add as we see that we need? And would the wiring, or, so we're not going back to do that? I guess I'm looking at a budget and I'm looking at what we still have yet to do. And the numbers are getting smaller. And so I'm wondering, could that be brought in and we purchase part of this package and add on to it as we grow?
I think aesthetically it is possible, but if you look at the retrofit of this room, so if you look behind the mayor and the wiring that goes to the camera, it's kind of an afterthought, and you get up, what you get is exposed wire mold, and in a brand new $38 million total package building, it's probably not the aesthetic this council is looking for, or to the public for a Class A facility. So having the infrastructure in place before the sheetrock goes on is very imperative. Yes, anything is possible to be added on in the future, but you do get little quirks that that go along with that.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, I mean, I'm following exactly what Councilor Beyondich and Councilor Johnson are saying. However, I'm also wondering, would there be additional revenue potential by putting these things in that you could add an upcharge to, say, if we're doing a EMS training and we're charging a facility and, you know, you put a package, a different kind of package together based upon the needs of that person that's presenting or that entity that is utilizing whatever room it may be. So I would also see that there would be a potential to recover or recoup some of that expense.
The council has already approved the expense for individuals to utilize the audiovisual package or to add that on to their room rental. So we had already factored that in for cost recovery and equipment replacement in the future.
Thank you for that, Brian.
Okay, thank you. Once again, I would like to reiterate that I think that we asked for these amendments. We want these addendums to the, we want these additions in there. We knew it was going to be additional expense. And for now, you know, and we wanted it all for us to consider. But once again, from my perspective, a $38 million state-of-the-art facility up on the Iron Range that's going to accommodate a variety of venues. We're looking at it from our perspective. But I try to look at it from the vendor perspective. What would they want? What do they need? What do they can utilize for? So what kind of services are we going to be provided in this particular case in the audiovisual area that's going to accommodate their needs, both from a corporate need, from an entertainment need, from a sports need, from a community need. And so I think we have to address all those issues in this these addendums that you've provided, the additional costs. I know it can be borne, and no one ever wants to continue to use the word contingency fee, but we have a lot of money in there right now, and we expect it to open in September. There are some other additional contingency considerations that are probably to come forward, probably with the security system elsewhere, but I believe we have to put the system in the way we want it, and then as technology evolves, we will look at those kind of things, and I do have a concern with respect to adding things on the end, in particular from a hardware perspective, where we have to drill holes to put a camera in and run other lines and wires in. And why not put it in now? We need it now. It's a current technology, probably good for, you know, whenever the case may be. But as the communities evolve, and you look at Bemidji State, the center there, all those places, they put in their audiovisual and they compromised. And now they're sorry that they did. They have to add on to all these kind of things. They have gaps in their systems. And so, you know, if we're going to put a system in, I think we've done our due diligence as a city council. We've provided the professional services requirements of getting these bids. We've gone through the RFPs. We're at the stage now, we have to make a decision today, I think, about that, because we've had these presentations. It's not that we're being rushed. We've got all the information before us right now, so it's a matter of determining what we want to do. So that being said, if any other council has any questions, comments they'd like to make at this point in time, before we move on for some council action, Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I am of the strict opinion that we need to do this with the full package. I've got something going on in the retrofitting. The longer you go, the more expensive product is getting. I sat on doing something in my own home here for a year, putting an outside generator system in. It's gone up $2,000, plus the installation costs have gone up because I have to retrofit an older house. And if you have to retrofit even a new building, drilling through walls and stuff, it gets very, very expensive. So I don't want to see us backtracking on this. I want to see us move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bearable. So is there anything else that you'd like to see or provide in any addition to your presentation today?
Nope, I have covered the components that I wanted to today. Again, it's in your guys' court for decision, but again, I'd like to thank you guys for having us back up again and giving us this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And I would ask Brian, I'd probably put you on the spot here, Brian, but you think it's imperative to, do you think it's imperative that we move forward today on this audiovisual based upon all the information you received today and from the recommendation from our architectural firm?
Yes, today we definitely need to decide what ad alternates we are going to approve so we can get Tierney on board and get everything put in at this point. Otherwise, we do risk delaying the construction project.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, Councilor Bearable, you have your light on. It seems you're right now, the councilor. So we're looking to take some council action. We have no other, here, hang on one second. Councilor Freely.
So the total bid with all the add-ons is the 370 figure, or is it plus the 116?
It's plus the 116, so 370 plus 116.
486.
And so from where we budgeted, Brian, to where we're at, and I know there's been alterations in other budgeting as well, which left some money available because it came in under what your anticipated cost was. Are we still where we need to be in terms of like completing the project within the black?
This is a difficult pill to swallow because it's a big ticket item that essentially with the ad alternates, I under budgeted by half. So it makes things a lot tighter moving forward. It doesn't make it so that things are not doable. It just means that have to watch our P's and Q's. We may not get we definitely won't get the $100 crystal china plates, but we don't need the $100 crystal china plates.
Are there other aspects of the operations of the facility that we are going to want things for also that may be more utilized than something like this, if that makes any sense?
I believe for all the wants for the building, definitely for all the needs of the building, we still have the money there. We will also have money for the wants for the building.
Okay.
I just have to continue to sharpen my pencil and find the best deals possible.
And Eric, you're basically telling us that the conduiting and infrastructure that's being placed in the building will accommodate the 370 plus the 116 without having to do retrofitting and or drilling through already existing sheetrock walls, and we're good to go if we go.
I am not saying that. I am saying that we need to get Tierney Brothers on site to look at the pathways that have already been established through the construction bidding documents, and now looking at the add of the 116, 569, we need to just make sure that the pathways to get to the additional rooms are there. So there will probably be, yes, some additional conduits that are going to need to be drilled through the precast walls that already currently are installed.
However, now is the time to be adding those additional conduits.
I'll just echo what Brian said, is because the sheetrock is ready to go on the walls, they are framing, and now is the appropriate time to get the conduits in place.
And there will be no additional construction costs then on top of the bid that for the add-ons. I guess that's my concern, is like, then are we gonna get an, what's that called, change order for additional drilling, additional conduit, and so on and so forth, that's gonna be added to this package to accommodate this package? That's what I'm concerned about.
I think we need a joint meeting with our electrician that has been the on-site doing it with Turney Brothers to verify that. I can't say for certain here today that there is not going to be a change order to the construction project to modify some of the requests that are here, additional power to run some of the systems that we have power all over. We have enough circuits. We just need to dot the i's and cross the t's that we have to make them for the add-ons that you guys are requesting here today. Is it going to be a large dollar amount? I don't believe so, but I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you that there'll be no cost. We'll have this similar discussion when we talk about access control and the video cameras. We put the access control and the video conduits in place in the base bid where we knew they were at the time of design. Now that you've selected, next the committee of the whole meeting, you will be determining whether you will be hiring that vendor, which we had a previous presentation on. So we would like to get a complete low voltage meeting with our electrician to come back to you guys and verify that.
But like the anticipated, like pre-engineering thought process that went into what we anticipated having in the mech was within the cost of the 370 prior to the discussion of what we might want to have rather than what we needed.
Correct. So that stuff has already been vetted. The floor boxes are in the floor for the systems that would need in the base bid. Correct.
And that's my concern right now, is that yes, we would want to have this additional thing to put into a state-of-the-art facility, but if it's gonna cost us an additional $250,000 or $150,000 or $350,000 to accommodate that additional 116, I don't know that that's a reasonable expenditure.
Councilor Friedlib, I would expect that we will have a small to modest change order going with this because we will have additional conduit. I've been working with our electrician to figure out ways to negate that by going with a cable tray, which will eliminate a bunch of the conduit that was already scheduled to go in certain areas. So it may be a wash, it may be a small change order, not in our favor, but we are working to find ways to have the infrastructure of the building still secured, easily upgradable in the future, and meet and exceed our needs currently without negatively impacting our construction budget.
And from a professional consultative standpoint, Mike, then, is this something that's adequate and accommodating to the size and scope and anticipated use of a facility such as the MEC? Or is this something that you would see put into the Excel Center or the US Bank Stadium? Or I'm just making sure that we're getting something that is going to be fitting to our needs rather than more than what we needed and overkill, so to speak, because we're building a $38 million facility, we want it state-of-the-art. I understand that, but it still should be scaled accordingly to the square footage and the anticipated utilization of that building. So from your professional standpoint, is the 116 necessary, or is it like overkill?
Correct. So I believe that it's a good fit for the space. I don't think it's overkill. It is meeting a lot of needs and a lot of wants that you guys have. It is also addressing some of the new requirements that have been set forth of today, as far as like incorporating web conferencing into space, that especially quote L does account for that. By no means is it an Excel type of system. Those speakers that are at the Excel are $500,000 for a speaker.
Yes.
So I believe it's adequate for the space and the building itself.
Yes, I would be to the point where I would move that we have to bring this forward to consideration of the council. But I think some additional information should be provided with the anticipated additional cost of the change order that may be forthcoming to accommodate our wants on the 116 side. I mean, without question, we need to move forward because this is something that's going to be necessary in the building. It's just like, my biggest concern is how much more is it going to cost us beyond what we've already asked to have it increased upon. Does that make sense? We need to move it forward for consideration of the council, but knowing what additional costs there will be to our add-on to accommodate those add-ons would be certainly preferable to know also. Is it 10,000 or 110,000, you know? So anyhow, when we're at that point, we should move in that direction.
Thank you, Councilor Freely, but just a quick comment. You know, and I'm only speaking for myself here, not for the council, but from a historic perspective, when they built the miners back in 1959, and somebody might be think, well, there's no correlation there. Well, the point, the connection I'm trying to make is that when they built that facility, they built it with the minimum, what they could build it for, the cheapest way they could build it, with the minimal amount of things in it, what they thought they needed at that time. 10 years later, it was antiquated. And so over the course of this thing, no adjustments were made, no investment was made, no additional expenses were made, really to upgrade and keep that thing viable. And here we are today, building a facility, knowing that if we would have done something before, we may not have had to make this expense as we move forward. But the issue for me is, in the very beginning, from my perspective, the base bid was too low. And not from the cost perspective, but what we were putting in there was not adequate, both from a security perspective and from an audiovisual perspective, not based on my personal experience, but based upon the recommendations and the committees I sat on at the airport with respect to the same kind of a system when we bring these systems in, audiovisual for the new police department, all elsewhere, on what needed to be done, and the base bid wasn't adequate. They had to add these things on in order to accommodate for the future, in order to plan for the future, in order to maintain the technology as far as we can until something changes dramatically. And so, and I agree with Councilor Freely, we need to know what that cost is, but really, we've been doing this for I don't know how long. And so I think that we educated ourselves from the very beginning with this base bid, knowing that it wasn't enough. Now, as this evolved, we've discovered that now with this audiovisual, there's gaps in what the base bid was. There's gaps in what the recommendation was. That's why it's more than half or more of a cost, because we've expanded it from a smaller square footage to a larger square footage. So as that expands, as that moves, and so does the other parts of the system, both the infrastructure, the FF&E, and all those kind of things are part of that. That's the purpose of having a contingency to some degree, so you have a little bit of wiggle room with respect to that. And as Brian Silber says, our park rector, yeah, it's a big pill to swallow. But, you know, I think that, and I go on the faith and recommendations by staff with respect to the conduit costs about, you know, drilling a hole or whatever, the additional things to run for the wires. I see your proposal includes a lot of that stuff in the bids itself, which includes the add-ons as well. That's part of this extra cost. That's all included in there. It's a small electrical wiring that's got to run, which is, you know, in the scheme of things for the additional, not the base, because that's already in there. It's just for the additional costs of the extra money that's going to run it. So I would just, based on your recommendation, the cost is going to be pretty minimal. But we have to make that decision moving forward. So if we wait another week, if we wait, you know, and get that information, and have the same discussion. That's why we have the special council meeting today. If we move it forward to the council meeting, next council meeting, which is April, 14th or somewhere like that, April, whatever, then that creates a problem because you're putting up sheetrock now. We're doing all those kind of things. It's coming down to crunch time. We have to make the decision. And from my perspective, the decision is to move forward with the recommended base bid as requested and move forward with that to put all those, or the addendums in, along with the base bid and get it done this time. And as technology improves, we'll make those adjustments moving forward. But if we don't do it now, then it's catch up pretty soon. Well, we're not going to do that now. We're going to wait, and we'll wait till, for a year or two from now. Then we'll put this in. Well, a year or two from now, technology might change. It should go from you're playing catch up all the way down the line, like we did with the miners project. Never did catch up. Never did able to get that. And then when we didn't have the money, we had to go beg for it somewhere. And lo and behold, with the help of this elected body and our representatives and our staff, we're able to get enough money to at least continue with this project and then evolve into a new facility. So I think that we have to make the decision today to move forward with what we've asked you to give us. This is what we wanted from you. So now we're going to say, well, maybe we don't want that. Well, we have to make a decision like the, from my perspective, and I understand the cost associated with that, and everybody wants all the T's crossed and I's dotted. That's our job as elected body to make sure that gets taken care of. But in this particular case, sometimes we have to, put our trust and faith in our process, and we try to oversee that process as much as we can, without micromanaging the process, but being considerate to our constituency and the people and to the project itself. So that being said, I'm all in on the addendums moving forward, making the adjustment on whatever the contingency is, and then, whatever, what Brian says, sharpen the pencil, whatever has to be done. I think that audiovisual is an important piece of this. The security system is the important piece to this. Maybe charging place isn't right now the important piece to this. Maybe that's something you look at for, because that's a technological thing. It's something that can be born, outside, the confines of this budgetary process. So those are my comments. Anybody else? Councilor Bearable.
We have to have a couple of important things to look at here. This gentleman, he's working with our construction manager, I'm sure, Cross Anderson, on this project. And I believe that they'll go out and try to help and find the best bids they can for the products that are going in this. Am I correct on this?
Correct, yes. So we will be working with DSGW as well as Cross Anderson, obviously come up with the best plan.
Yeah, and they found us some savings already for this project, Cross Anderson, working with all the vendors and all the people that are working there. We also have another thing we got to think about, okay? And I'm going to spit this right out. And you guys don't know this. We're going to get about $936,000 through this federal program that we just all got $1,400 from. It's coming to the city in two separate years. That money can be used for anything. It doesn't have to be used for COVID. That's in the legislation. We can use it for any expense in the city. Let's spend this little extra money. If we need to draw from that dollars, we can draw from that dollars. We're getting our $5.4 million back here in August. We have to give some to the utilities, like $1.2 million. But I mean, we're going to have some money to do this little bit of extra that's there. And if we don't do it now, it's going to, believe me, from my personal experience, I waited and I screwed around. It cost me $2,000 more to put in the generator system in my own home. It's a $9,000 bill instead of $7,000. That's my own fault because I didn't act. We need to act and get this done.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich.
And I'm kind of on the fence with this because when I asked the question about the infrastructure and getting everything in place, that would allow us to grow, to see if we truly need all this. We'd have all of that work done while the building is going up. I'm not totally convinced we need all of the add-ons, all of them, but that's why I asked Mr. Wedge, this is the time to do it. So we're not punching holes in walls. But if we can get that in place, do we really need the full package?
Maya, are you finished with your comment, or do you have more?
That's pretty much my comment, is just getting the infrastructure done now while they're doing it, so it's in place. But do we really need all of this, all of the add-ons?
We're the ones that asked for the add-on, so that's what I believe. Counselor Johnson in the back, got a comment?
I have a question for, I guess, Brian and Eric. When we first started this, we talked about making sure there was room to grow. And I understand that we've asked for things that are offshoots. But in the current infrastructure, the conduit, I know the cable tray is very easy to utilize to grow more. What have we done in the design so that in 5 years, if we need to run more cables, we don't have to drill holes and take down sheetrock?
Coming out of the electrical panels, we have empty conduits that are stubbed up above the ceiling levels to allow for future expansion for electric. We're not just throwing in extra conduit up in the ceiling that runs to nowhere and does nothing at this point. Don't believe that would be prudent. So, because we don't know where we're going to want to run additional lines. But from the breaker boxes themselves, we have stubbed out the additional conduit so that it can easily be tied into things. What are some other examples, Eric?
Just met with Brian and the electrician last week. We were going to be hard conduiting everything from your data, your phones, your computer systems. We've since changed that, and there might be a small credit coming back to the council. I can't say for sure, but running the whole length above in the hallway, well, adjacent to the hallway, all the way from the front to the back of the building is a cable tray now, so that allows a lot more future flexibility than trying to run future cables in a conduit over 400 feet without having to have your patch panels and boosters and things like that. So to answer your question, we did in plan a lot of additional stuff, but we can't plan for everything, and specifically the alternate bids that the council requested here 2 weeks ago, and we're back. Those items, some of the additional stuff that we planned may be covered that we have, and some of it is just probably going to involve a small electrical change. And when Brian says a small, modest, I don't think we're looking at anything extremely large here. But I'm not going to throw a dollar amount out and be held accountable to it, because we need to meet with the electrician and with the vendor. Attorney Brothers, your vendor, and vet that out. And through the process, we will vet that out to give the city the best price that we can. And maybe it'll come back as a wash, but I don't want to say it's going to be a wash and come back and have to say, no, we need some more money. So.
In further answering your question, another one of the things that we have done for future growth is I am envisioning our meeting rooms being set up in one direction. So in this plan, our TV monitors are on, as you walk in, the TV monitors are on the side wall. If we discover here 2-3 years from now that every single person that is wanting to use this room wants the monitors on the wall to your left as you walk in, we have already run the conduit, we have the backing on those walls so that we would easily be able to move the monitor from permanently move the monitor from one wall to another wall, and then just reroute that electrical above the ceiling tile. Those are some of the type things that we have looked at for the future growth and expansion. Or if 10 years from now we have a new technology that we want to add to this wall over here, we already have the conduit and the power lines stubbed in to accommodate those things.
Thank you. And that's exactly what I was looking for, because I know we talked about it before, and I appreciate that, that we are looking, it's like you can plan a street, but you can't plan every residence on the street. It's the same thing. So, and then I would just toss out for for thought of the council, instead of approving the entire package all at once, maybe we need to approve each add-in separately, and then that way, it can be clear. That would just be a suggestion I have, because I'm not at the point to approve L&M. That's where I'm at, but that's where I'll leave that at.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Just quickly, it's not just what we want as a city council or what we want to provide in that it's what our vendors want, what our vendors need, what they'll utilize this thing for. So we're the customer service representative for these vendors to establish revenue stream to help our city prosper and grow. And so part of that is to be able to provide the amenities that they need to conduct their business, no matter what it is. And so that's, and from my perspective, however we decide how we're going to vote, I'm voting for the entire project because I think it's imperative that we continue to move forward, not piecemeal this at the very beginning. Councilor Freely. Oh, okay, no, okay, thank you.
I forgot my light was on, my bad.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I mean, I think we need to move forward. Yeah, it's kind of painful, Brian, I would agree, but I think if we're going to do this, we should do it correctly and, prepare for anything that could come forward our way. But to make me feel comfortable, could you describe a scenario for L, the alt package L? What type of scenario would we be looking at for somebody to use those ballroom areas? And just walk us through a scenario of how that might be utilized by a vendor or someone renting that space.
Yeah, so typically, if you're doing an event where, let's say you have that room and it's divided into 4 unique rooms, you might have a large corporate client that would be renting the space, for instance, and they might have 4 unique trainings going on, and let's say they have remote offices throughout the country. They're not going to fly necessarily everybody in, so they would want to run 4 unique Zoom meetings to allow remote participants to be able to sit in on those 4 trainings. That would be probably the most common scenario, but there's...
So just for my own processing as well, and I hope it's okay, I continue, Mayor. Is that okay?
Yes, please do. Thank you.
So say Cleveland Cliffs comes and has some executives that come forward, and they want to have a meeting, and they want to be able to view the employees or the participants in that meeting, and they want to have, the person that's on the web conference is at home or wherever using the computer, they would be able to see the audience and then have that interactive participation in a meeting or something like that. And is that part of that capability with this $31,000 ad?
So it would be based off of where we place the cameras in the room and the configuration of how you set up that meeting. So if, for instance, you set the camera at the rear of the room to pick up the front of the room presenter, those cameras are PTZ cameras similar to what we have in here, where you could zoom out to capture an audience view. Again, if they're facing the presenter, it's going to be the back of their head. So they would have to adjust how they're seated in the space. But yes, in theory, you could pick up your audience. How you adjust that camera setting.
And so just having a screen here, or when we're in here, we have, well, it used to be Skype. Now it's Zoom. The presenters, you can see them, when we're here, but they can't. Can they see us, Britt, when we're in this room? Okay, and that's the capability that would be within that L ad.
Correct, yep. You'll have the camera, audio, and video.
Because we do not have that ability in the council chambers currently, is that correct?
Correct, not through Zoom. They're looking at us right now through YouTube. So my question I was going to ask you, so we could basically have a council meeting there because we could live stream broadcast it. They can see what we're doing. They can see.
Correct.
I guess that's why I wanted to understand what types of scenarios could we envision utilizing that for that $31,000 value?
Correct, yeah. So that would be another scenario, you could
If we had
broadcast
a
that
TED
through.
Talk, just for an example, we could televise the TED Talk and charge admission to get the password to jump into the TED Talk, and we could broadcast it. That's my favorite option, but.
Yeah, so the TED Talk's another great example. You could stream that through a Zoom meeting, and then with M, you could actually stream that and connect it into like a YouTube channel or something along those lines.
Thank you so much for letting me go on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Bearable?
We have to remember that conventions that we're looking at are not just going to be just simple conventions. You're going to have big entities that are going to come up here. League of Minnesota Cities, Greater Minnesota Cities, Library Convention, all kinds of things. If any of you have been, and I'm assuming most of you have been to some of these big conventions, I've been to many, many over my years as a pharmacist with pharmaceutical conventions. They have, if you look at their agendas, they have tons of breakouts and they're all at the same time. How are you going to accommodate if we don't have this technology to break out these rooms into separate things? Because they have all kinds of breakouts at the same time throughout these events. And then they may split them in half a day, and they may flip them around for another half a day, so people can attend more than one thing. So that's something you got to think about. We don't want to shortchange ourselves now.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearable.
I just had a couple.
Counselor Freely?
Brian, other than the China, what are some other, I mean, is this going to allow us to still afford state-of-the-art Zamboni? Is this going to allow us state-of-the-art dasher boards and plexiglass, all the other things that we're thinking about? Are we going to have to shortchange ourselves on the quality of furniture? That's another concern. Have you already kind of like looked at all the additional needs that we have and the quality of those needs? How much will this impact us having to lessen those?
The furniture is something that we're not going to skimp on. We have to go with high-end commercial quality furniture. Actually, Tuesday, we will be asking the city council to allow us to go out to bid for that furniture. Thankfully, in that, it looks like I have over budgeted by about $100,000 for our furniture. What our initial cost estimates are that we've gotten back from Julie with DSGW is that going to have a cost savings there. I have the Zamboni on a wish list, and we're working out the final legal agreements and documentation with Komatsu, who is going to be purchasing the Zamboni for us. I've actually already gotten the quotes for that Zamboni, which has every bell and whistle that our staff wants on the Zamboni, and came in under the budget that I had put on our FF&E wish list. Looking at purchasing used pipe and drape here locally that has come available, so that could be a potential savings. I know I over budgeted on the plates and the silverware. That should come in under budget.
And we still have a pretty healthy contingency fund, and some of these dollars, Charlie, you're mentioning could be utilized for things in this capacity as well?
Yeah, they absolutely can be from I just went through a big meeting with Rams where Baker Tilly went through all this. You guys should have received that in your packets now, showing, and there's all kinds of breakout areas, not just the main money I talked about, but other areas we can attach. There's about, 9 or 10 other areas that we can go out for, where there's going to be grant dollars available. It's competitive, those. But if we have our stuff in a row like Britt's been doing and our staff's been doing, there's more dollars other than what I just told you about, that 900,000.
So the only real hesitancy I have still is the potential project or a change order that may come about with regard to accommodating our additional 116,000 request. Sure would be nice to get a number relative to that.
Unfortunately, until we award the bid to Tyranny, they really cannot work with our contractors to come up with a firm change order bid.
But we may, with the contingency monies and the monies that would be forthcoming, we should be able to cover the cost potentially of this change order to accommodate our needs.
Yes, we still have a healthy change order contingency left, especially for a project this size at this point in the project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Freely. So, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on what I've heard and Britt bringing up TED Talks and the council meetings in the chamber, I will move H through M and approve all of the alternative bids at their price of $116, 5569.07.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. So you're not advocating an individual any longer?
That is correct.
So that is your motion?
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
I'll
Did you get
support,
that
Mayor.
motion? Get the motion? Okay, hang on.
I would amend my motion to include both the base bid and the ad alternatives.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor by Counselor Johnson to approve the base bid from Tierney and the add-ons. And that's the bid, and that would be,
$486,000.
right, and supported by Counselor Bearable. Okay? Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
With the addendum that no further change orders will come forward from Tierney. I'm comfortable with this, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice little tidbit there. So moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Yeah. Okay, what's your other item on the agenda, Brian? Okay, let's go to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the adopt a resolution for a grant application to the LCCMR. Brian or Britt?
I can jump in really quick, actually. On your desk, I did ask Matt to go back. Our original request to LCCMR was about $650,000. But then I had a thought, with LCCMR, there's no matching funds, and grant requests of over $1 million are not unusual. And in fact, they've funded them numerous times. So I told Matt, let's go back and add some lighting in. The lighting we did not get on Bailey's Lake, some more lighting around Silver Lake, and then lighting on the MEC trails. We did increase the grant budget, the request budget to $1.2 million. So we do need a resolution. I will have to adopt, if the resolution doesn't have a dollar amount and it just has a resolution to submit the grant to LCCMR, but we're looking to submit the grant for LCCMR for the MEC Trail, Silver Lake, what's it called? Silver Lake Trail Connection. The LCCMR in the amount of $1.2 million, which includes lighting for all 3 trails.
Okay, thank you, Britt.
Yep.
Counselor Freely?
Would that additional 200,000 then be the responsibility of the city, or if they only go up to
But we
$1
haven't
million?
submitted our grant application yet, so we're going to ask for the full 1.2 million.
But you said they only give up to $1 million?
Oh, no, they've given
Millions.
millions.
Okay, I would go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution for the LCCMR grant application at the amount of 1.2 million.
A motion by Counselor Freely. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. In the process with that, I submit it tomorrow. It goes through review committee. We'd usually have to testify. This year we testified by Zoom. The year before, the mayor and I actually went down to St. Paul. And then it goes into the next legislature. So we would know by next May if we were successful or not.
May of 2022.
22, and it would be available fiscal year 23. So we would probably do construction in 23.
Very good.
For the connection, this is actually, it's really the MEC trail, but it's the connection to Silver Lake. They like projects that build up on each other. So if we can show that it's part of the existing project they're already funding, they really like to do that.
And that's why we were successful the first time in that regard, and the second time in that regard, so good, thank you. Okay, so was moved and supported. Did we vote on that yet? No. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. And Britt, is that included, is that what this map is
Yeah,
included?
that's the most updated map.
Could someone maybe just go through this quickly, if you don't mind, Matt?
There's a copy if you need it.
Matt Reed, our engineer of record, SCH. Matt, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yes, so this segment would be where the Silver Lake Trail comes into the sidewalk at 9th Avenue, just on the north side of Lakeside Park. We'll take off and we'll do an expansion to the current sidewalk system heading south towards the MEC. And then once we get to the MEC, you recall with the old miners in the football field, there was a trail that meandered around behind there. So essentially, we'll be looking at doing something similar to that, and it'll bring it over to 12th Avenue. So that's what's shown on those exhibits, and then, like Britt said, try to pick up some additional lighting on some of the other projects that we weren't able to get yet.
Thank you.
And thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Brian. Britt. Okay, next item on the agenda, of course, Matt's up the bat once again. The review of the signal system on Chestnut Street. And so, what do we got? Matt?
Okay, so a couple of months ago, I think it was now, maybe not quite that long ago, your Public Works Director, Bill Hennis, had us come up and take a look at the signal system on Chestnut Street. There's those 5 signals, I think there's 4 or 5 signals out there, and they're not in very good shape. There's a memo that Britt included in the packet again that one of our traffic experts wrote up, a pretty thorough memo, and some of the various alternatives that could go along with it. And at that time, I believe it was Councilor Johnson asked, do we really need those signals there? Good question. So I think what I've gone back and I've actually talked it over with John Gray, the gentleman that put that memo together. And his opinion is likely by the traffic volumes on any of those roads, probably none of them warrant having the signals there. That said, there are probably 2nd Avenue, maybe 4th Avenue with the fire station being there, well, temporarily anyway, maybe not for long, and maybe 6th Avenue with the school. Maybe there is some, even though, excuse me, even though traffic volumes maybe don't warrant it, maybe there's still a reason that we would want to leave those traffic signals there. Anyway, I think the next step in this process, at least my recommendation would be that we go out and evaluate those 5 intersections. We look at the traffic volumes, we look at the turning movements, we look at all those things that we would normally do on an intersection evaluation, and then come back to you with a recommendation as to, first of all, if it's justified to even keep them there. It might be that the answer is it's not justified for any of them, but again, I think 2nd Avenue definitely would be one we'd want to take a serious look at keeping in. But and then from there, we can make a decision based, I can make you a recommendation and you can make an educated decision on what we want to do moving forward. There's no doubt that the system there is antiquated. It needs to be updated. It's just in really bad shape. So with the timing of that and some of those things is yet to be determined. But I think what I would like to do is try to get this done this spring yet before school gets out. Because a lot of the traffic that goes through there, especially in the mornings and at around 3 o'clock, the 6th Avenue intersection particularly, is with parents coming in to pick their kids up and drop them off, as well as the high school students driving. So I think we'd get kind of a peak time frame. And then we may want to go out again later on in the summer and do it again. But I think that would be the first step. That would be my recommendation, is to just have us, we'll go do an evaluation of those intersections. We're not going to do a full-blown, what you would do for like a trunk highway intersection evaluation, but do enough to where we can make a good decision and the council can make a good decision based on our recommendations. So that's where I'm at with it. I think the discussion, if I remember right, Councilor Baraboo, we were going to try to get it in front of a street and alley committee or get it in a street and alley committee meeting and maybe think about tacking that on to the 2023, the next project that we're going to do, the next big project in a couple of years. So we can still continue to pursue that if you'd like, but that's, oh, Bill, I don't know if you were listening in the other room, did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
I just came in cold.
Okay.
My problem is I just can't get.
This is Bill Hennis, our Public Works Director. Bill?
Problems with the streetlights for me personally, besides their high maintenance, of course, right now. I just can't get parts for the existing controllers. There's basically a blue box in there that's the main controller. Those are obsolete. I can't even get one of those. I can send, if I do have a breakdown, I can take that box and send it down to Iowa and they will try to fix it. But in the meantime, we're without. And then there's like 2 sub-controllers, and I have parts and pieces for them that luckily, when Mr. Hayda was employed by the city, he kind of knew how to jerry-rig them, and now Ryan's learning how to jerry-rig them. But I mean, if we have a failure, we're done. And you'll be, I hate to say it, stuck with stop signs until we can figure out something else to do. But we opened up those boxes last winter when we were having problems, and the wires would literally crumble in your hand when you tried to move them. So, I mean, it's been 40 years. They're in real tough shape.
Okay, thank you, Bill. So several years ago, well, let's say when we recently, it's 4 years ago, we talked about the street, the traffic lights, more from an aesthetics perspective as opposed to a functionality, right? But there was a concern about the functionality, but when they had the phone booths in there, they took those out, and then they were all, they were rusted, and so the city took some steps to try to spruce up the aesthetics of the lights themselves, but there was a recommendation back then that these lights are eventually going to have to be replaced, or a new type of traffic system on that 5 blocks of Chestnut Street would have to be reevaluated. Now we're at that point, right, now on which to do so. I know it was on the Street and Alley meeting for consideration about what needs to be done. And so based on your recommendation, Matt, we'll move to the rest of the city council for additional comments. First, we'll start with the Street and Alley Chair, Councilor Bearable, and then move on to Councilor Paulson, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Thank you.
Yeah, initially, we were going to put this on about this time of the year on a special street and alley meeting, and Britt and I had a conversation about just doing this with this meeting. I don't have any problem if we do an evaluation like Matt is suggesting on this. We need to know, and we need to have traffic counts, or we need to go with our others, because some of those are state aid roads that are with these lights, like 2nd Avenue, I think 6th Avenue is, and probably 4th.
Not.
4th is not a state aid street?
think so.
No, it's not, okay. But I think 6th is, and you gotta remember, the grade school is coming back. It's not gonna disappear for very long when they tear it down and rebuild it. So the traffic is very heavy for grade school parents picking up and stuff. High school will be gone by 2023. So that'll reduce the traffic, but I think we need to do a good study on this. And I believe if we're gonna need any, we'll can space them down or do less than the full 5 blocks unless you guys, through your study, find out something different. That's my personal opinion as chair.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. With all that being said, how many lights did Amoresco actually change on those stop signals?
Good question. I'm not sure.
The bulbs they changed?
Yeah.
They changed the control.
Right. No, I understand. I meant the bulbs. How, all of them already?
Yeah, all of them have LED lights in them right now.
I guess that's my point. So, and is there an estimation? I thought there was when I'm sorry, the packet's kind of big today, but was there an estimation per pole, replacement per pole?
In your packet,
Like
there was some
80?
preliminary costs, I think, that John Gray had included that he thought might be. I don't have that in front of me, but it should be in your packet.
485.
That's probably per intersection, I would guess.
It makes a person want to choke.
Per intersection.
I would think that's per intersection, yeah.
That'll be a great meeting, Charlie. I just wanted to point that out. If there's any other additional bulbs that from Amoresco, maybe we put a hold on that. But it sounds like they've already changed them all. But if there isn't, if there is any that aren't, I would put a halt to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
To your point, Counselor Paulson, those bulbs could be used in other, we can use those bulbs somewhere else, in
Yeah,
other
for the most
fixtures.
part, they're all universal. I mean, some of the pedestrian lights are, unique bulbs, but the red, the greens, and all are universal.
Okay, so we would be able to reutilize those. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. And I did ask that question about why, because it used to be the main highway coming through Virginia. My other question would be, do we need to have a three-way signal on 6th Avenue regulating people coming back and forth down that way, and the right having a three-way stop to make the left-hand turns onto Chestnut? That would be something else I think I'd like to have looked at. But I think now is the time we figure out this, because if nothing else, maybe we salvage whatever's left of two of them, and now we have a few extra parts until we can get to a point where we can replace as appropriate. So I would move that we allow Matt Reed to move forward with his proposal to evaluate the traffic flows for those intersections.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson to approve or recommend or direct our engineer of record to do a traffic evaluation study along with our city staff about the traffic lights on Chestnut Street. Is there support?
I'll support Mayor, because both,
Support by Counselor Bearable. Did you get that motion, Chris? Any further discussion, Counselor Bearable?
yeah, just that Counselor Johnson and I are both on the Street and Alley Committee, so we've been talking about this in past meetings with Matt, so this is a good way to go.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearable. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Just to let everybody know real quickly, if I may, we'll put it, Pam's been gone, so I'll have Chris put out an email, but Congressman from the 8th District, Pete Stauber, has made a request. They called me last night. They'd like to come and take a tour of yesterday afternoon, take a tour of the MEC. I've notified our Park and Rec Director. He's going to be coming up on April the 7th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He's going to be touring the high school construction project, I think at 1:30, and at 2 o'clock he has a Zoom meeting with some company up here, and then he wants to tour the MEC at 3 o'clock. So for anybody who's interested in that, that's the schedule. Just to let you know that he'll be coming up. So Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. Britt, would you post that as a possible quorum? Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so thank you, Counselor Johnson. So just as an announcement for that. So unless there's any other business to come before this special council meeting, is there any other business? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned. Thank you very much.